Good morning, everybody, and a happy Thursday morning to you. We have a little bit of royal family news, and then we're jumping in with both feet into episode number 2 of Meghans' show. God help me. Let's jump in. There's a lot to cover. Let's go. We're going to start with the fabulous news that Taylor Swift got engaged. She wrote at the bottom of the post, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." How funny is that? She put it up on Instagram. There were 5 pictures with a firecracker emoji, and Swift was wearing a Ralph Lauren halter neck dress and a diamond encrusted Cartier watch, and she had the engagement ring. That ring, by the way, let me tell you, her fabulous fiance actually designed this ring. It's hand cut. It has a cushion-like shape, rounded corners, chunky facets, and old mine cut diamonds, which was very popular in the 18th and 19th century, so no two are alike. This is an absolutely gorgeous ring, and they're saying it could be worth up to $1 million. Congratulations. Fabulous. Well, and of course it overshadowed Meghan just a bit. I bet she was pissed. Now, I'm not sure which father it was, but one of them let it slip that they actually got engaged 2 weeks ago. And of course, one of the first people to react was Princess Catherine and Prince William, who liked what she wrote on Instagram. That's fabulous. All right, let's move on. Let's move on now to Princess Beatrice, who has launched a new business venture with a senior figure at the World Economic Forum. She was named a director and a 45% shareholder of Purpose Economy Intelligence Limited, which is a newly incorporated company listed at Companies House. Now, this spans software development, IT services, and management consult. All right, let's move on to Andrew now, and this book that's coming out from the grave. Virginia Giuffre, wrote this memoir, Nobody's Girl. Apparently, she's now claiming that Prince Andrew assaulted her with a puppet. He cupped her chest with a puppet of himself, making lewd gestures. I'm beginning to wonder how much of this book is real and how much is not. And in the meantime, I've told you guys before, I know that trafficking happened, but once you lie in a court of law, you've lost credibility with me. And this girl lied on the stand. It was proven. So what's concerning me now is nobody seems to be worried about Prince Andrew's mental health. And apparently it's really taking a toll because he's lost absolutely everything that defined him. But people just don't think about that. They just want to keep going until they destroy him. It's horrible. All right, let's move on to Meghan Markle. While the Netflix series is dropping, most people did not notice that Meghan has deleted her Shop Me. Everything that was on the page is gone. It's now completely blank. So it's another project that she shelved. Maybe people didn't want to dress like her. Maybe they couldn't afford to dress like her. All right, let's move on. Let's move on now. One of these chefs who has cooked for King Charles and built up a big reputation of his own, his name is James Stocks. He said, "From what I've seen of Meghan's show, it's the same old nonsense. It lacks originality and substance, and it falls very short." He said, "It's boring and dull." And I got to be honest, I completely agree with him. He goes, "She hasn't broadened her appeal. There's no drastic changes. Nothing's changed since the first season." Well, that would be because it was, filmed at the same time. There's only so much they can do with the cutting room stuff. And we're going to go back now to the interview. I talked to you about it yesterday, but people are really talking about the word salad. Here's what she said, quote, "There's always going to be moments when you feel as though a story is being told about some caricature of you that actually has nothing to do with you, and that can be really hard to reconcile." Then she goes, "But I think the more comfortable you get with yourself, certainly age helps. I'll be 44. It's great. It's great." And then she says, "But I just think that really it's a lot of value to you when you anchor into your own knowing. Then you're telling your own story. You're telling your own story and how you show up in the world, what you do. You actually don't need to say anything." And everybody was like, anchored into your own knowing. What does that even mean? I mean, somebody else wrote, "I anchored into my own knowing that what my ears heard was BS." And when I heard her say that, another person said, "What the F is that?" I mean, it's her typical word salad. Now, she also clapped back at a couple of other things. She says, "I have real friends, the same ones since I was 17. No, she doesn't that we're aware of. If she really did, she would have pulled them out in front of the camera to prove that she could hang on to friends. She continued on, I'm a real mom. I have to go, and I choose to go and do school pickup and drop off. And I do that under a landscape that is created, that forgets that I'm a real person. And how would you want somebody to treat a real person in your life that you cared about or loved and respected? And so that's something that I think about. Well, my thought process on that statement is maybe you shouldn't have played so many games with the media when you were pregnant and when you gave birth to your kids. You wanted privacy. Now people are doubting paternity. That is what it is. She created this with her lies about where she couldn't give birth and the unsigned notice. She created this entire problem. She goes, my kids are going to see those magazines, and we all know moms gossip, and so I have to make a choice to move through the world as myself in spite of all the noise that's created. In other words, more buzzwords. But the truth is, she screwed her kids out of their legacy. That's the truth. The truth is also those kids, when they grow up, are going to see the videos and stuff and the proven lies that she said. They're going to realize their mom is crazy. Now, as I also told you yesterday, Megan just refuses to believe that anybody dislikes her show. She insists that people love her show. Even the ones that are criticizing it really love it. More word salad. She said, if you know your audience and you know your demographic and they love the show and my partners love the show and that's why we have a season 2 with more fun coming, then I think oftentimes the negative voices are saying negative things and then secretly they're going home and making single skillet spaghetti because they have to pay their bills. And that's for them to sort out if they're comfortable doing it at somebody else's detriment. Well, as I told you guys yesterday, she has been building her brand on the detriment of the royal family. Once again, hypocrisy at its best. All right, let's keep going. All right, really quickly, I also needed to throw this in there because basically what it's saying is there can't be any reconciliation with Harry because Meghan is not going to stop attacking. She just did it again. Now, before we get into number 2, I have to say something about David Chang. He was one of the chefs that was on the first episode. And apparently he is a one-time wannabe bad boy chef. And he's iconic in the food industry in the way they're saying Satan is something of an icon in hell. Because right now he's trying to cultivate a warm and fuzzy public image. Because what's come out is that he wrote, anger was my calling card. My name is synonymous with rage. He admitted in a book that he would punch walls and countertops, and he once blacked out with rage and threatened an employee with a knife at his restaurant in the Sydney casino. So his beverage director came forward to clarify the extent of his behavior, recalling that this guy regularly abused staff members. The director said, and I'm quoting, in all my years of restaurant work, I've never seen anything like the roiling, red-faced, screaming, pulsating, wrath-filled man that was David Chang. I will murder your effing family, he once said to a young line cook. So while this guy apologized and he's trying to be rebranded, he's like Meghan Markle. I'm just going to rebrand. It doesn't work that way. I want you guys to know I'm trying to be a trooper. And I'm trying to watch each of these episodes. Unlike last time, I'm not sitting and binge watching because last time it literally affected my mental health. Like, I'm not joking. I became severely depressed. So this time I'm doing them one a day. I have to pace myself, but I just finished episode 2. Okay, let's just get into it. So the whole beginning of number 2 is about making sourdough. And they have day 1, day 2, day 3. And each time she shows up in designer clothing and she's stressing about how much flour, how much water. It has to be perfect. Notice she's wearing her huge diamond studs, and also notice this obviously was not done in the first take because with each take her collar gets a little bit higher up on the back of her neck. She's like pouring water going, oh my God, I feel so nervous. And then she steps back and goes, whoo, look at me, I did it. She takes a sip of water and then she starts talking about her first guest, Chrissy Teigen, and how she's the quintessential multi-hyphenate. And she's a model and an entrepreneur and a mom and a cookbook author and an all-around foodie. So for the first 2 minutes of this 31-minute show, they show her coming back day 2, day 3, day 4, and adding more flour because don't you know that making this bread is a labor of love? The music is playing, shake your groove thing, yeah, yeah. You know, all this upbeat music. Finally, they make it to day 5, and she's making the actual bread. So now we're like 4 or 5 minutes in. She dumps the dough out, and she says, oh, I'm going to put a design in this dough. And she takes out this little tool, and she's cutting some sort of funky design into the dough. I'm sorry, but all I could see while she's baking this bread was the fact that her hair was literally hanging on it. It was unbelievable. So now in the meantime, because Chrissy's coming and she knows Chrissy likes this specific kind of tea, she makes the tea for Chrissy. So it's called boba tea, and she goes, oh, she loves crafting with her children and doing things in the kitchen. So I've planned fun activities, and she's just going to love it. And in the meantime, she shows us making this tea. And then she says something really interesting. She says Thai Town is popular in LA, and I used to go a lot when I was a kid and get a Thai iced tea because it was decadent and dessert-like. And I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't you tell people how poor you were as a kid? You were basically didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but yet somehow you could go down to Thai Town and get this decadent tea. Okay, so then the bread, we're back to the bread. The bread comes out of the oven, and what do we get? Oh my God, this bread is so good. Look at that crust. This is just the best bread. Oh my God. I mean, she waxes on about the bread, and it's done with love and care. And I'm like, so for 5 minutes, we're hearing about this legendary crust on the bread. I'm sorry, but I have to make a comment here. I'm watching this, and all I can think of is I'm losing brain cells. Like, I'm literally losing brain cells as she's going on about the crust of her bread. These are moments I will never get back in my life. And I'm just like, is this a joke? This has to be a joke. So she gets around to cutting the bread and toasting it, and she's putting together some topping, and she goes, let's get the ricotta. Like that, saying it like yada, ricotta. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so finally she makes this thing, and Chrissy Teigen shows up, and she goes, oh, John is here too. He wants to say hello, John. And here comes John Legend. He's making a little, cameo. Of course, Megan's hugging the stuffing out of the two of them. And then now here's Chrissy Teigen. So the first thing Chrissy Teigen does is pay attention to Guy. And Megan launches into this thing about how she got the dog and she named it Guy, and she kept the name because he was a little guy. She didn't mention that wasn't the dog she wanted and that she stalked the other owner. She just left that out of the mix. So then she goes, here, Chrissy, I made this for you. Now we're 8 minutes in. Chrissy's dipping the bread and goes, this is the most ideal day I can imagine. Oh my God, this bread, the crust on it. And Megan goes, when you're making this, I was like, I want more bread? I'm like, I have to eat it. It took days to make, days. So we're 8 minutes in, and they're still talking about the bread. So finally, Megan's like, okay, this is good. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make some cheese crackers. And then we stand around watching them make this. Megan's got her diamond pinky ring on. She's obviously reading the ingredients right off of a recipe, which, by the way, they still don't provide any of the recipes for any of the things they're making. I think that's done intentionally because they want you to watch over and over and over and boost the ratings. Then Megan talks about making these flower things for the kids. So Chrissy pulls up her sleeve, and there's a tattoo that supposedly has her children's birth dates on it. She can't read the tattoo, and she goes, John, when was our kid born? I'm like, really? Thing she says is, we're going to go outside because we have this beautiful garden we planted out there. That's not her garden. This is the garden at the rental house. And of course, she walks around. Here are the cosmos. There's the pansies. She knows the name of every flower. I'm telling you. She even mentioned forget-me-nots, which we know were Diana's favorite flower. Then once they have everything, they go, and Megan goes, welcome to the craft barn. And Chrissy goes, really? Megan acts like it's hers. Again, rental house. So they do this thing where they dry and press the flowers, and she talks about, these are the ones we sourced, and this is what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then they get into this interesting discussion about back when they were the briefcase girls on Deal or No Deal. Chrissy remembers, I remember being a backup girl, and I remember having to stand in line to get our lashes put on. And Meghan goes, I was just happy to have a job and have health insurance. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? This is the job that you said that you quit after 6 weeks because you were being objectified as a woman. And it was a year or two after I left that you became famous. I'm thinking, yeah, she made her way up in the world and you didn't. You were floundering, of course, until you met Harry. So they dry these flowers. There's this whole process. It looks, again, like something that you would do at camp. It's like another camp project. So they get done with this, and Meghan goes, it's time to go and do the crackers. So she turns around, picks up the dog, walks into the kitchen, and the next thing you know, they're rolling out dough. I'm praying she washed her hands somewhere in this process, because the one thing you never see her doing in any of her videos is washing her hands. Well, you got to get it down to 1/8 of an inch, and Meghan is complaining about the rollers she has, so she gets another roller, and then Chrissy Teigen is like putting dots in the middle after it's being cut, and then all of a sudden it cuts to Meghan Markle making something for Chrissy Teigen. She's making rose water. Now, you guys, this is so complicated. She takes dried roses, she puts them in a cup of water, and an hour later, she puts that in the bottom of a boiling pot of water with some kind of a strainer on top and a bowl. Then she puts the lid on backwards and dumps ice on top so that as the water steam hits the top, it ends up in the bowl. And the music is playing. I have to make a comment. I just think it's important to add this. The amount of music that Netflix must have paid copyright for, because they try to spice up all these scenes with these upbeat music. And it's just like, this episode was so dull, it dragged. It just dragged on and on and on. God. Well, the next thing she does is start spraying herself, and then she starts offering spritzes of rose water to all of the people with their cameras. And they're leaning forward and she's spritzing them. And it's like, okay. So now we cut, and they're outside working on their projects again with their dried flowers. So Meghan cuts some resin tape, says pick a shape, put it on the resin tape, put some resin in there, put your flower in there, and then we're going to stick it under the UV light to cure it. So easy. Well, Meghan puts this one flower down and she calls it. Meghan picks up a flower and go, here, it's Hansworth. And Chrissy looks at her and goes, is that the name of one of your kids? And Meghan goes, if I could have kept that a secret, that's impressive. What it comes down to is the name of the flower was Hawthorn. So what that tells you is she really doesn't know the names of these flowers. This is all scripted. So she's like, we're going to put the flowers on with the tweezers, and they're going to go under the light, and they're going to get like a gel manicure, and blah, blah, blah. Again, it's ridiculously boring to watch other people do arts and crafts that are literally something you did at camp. Now, Chrissy launches into a story about how she used to work at Del Sol, which is the t-shirts that used to glow in the dark with the UV lights, and how, I used to put the lights up and the shirts up to the light, and they'd be like, oh, that's so cool. And of course, that left Meghan to talk about how she was the rush chair for her sorority. And the whole time Meghan has this rictus grin on and she's clapping. And then she goes, I have to send this to you because it's going to take time to finish. And by the way, I know you love flowers so much, so I made you the homemade rose water. And she hands it to her, and Chrissy was like, oh my gosh, this is just so wonderful. Then they head back into the kitchen to do the crackers, after telling Chrissy, of course, that she'll send the necklaces to her with love. So then they pull the cheesy stuff out of the oven, they break it up, they put it in a bowl, and they start talking about what a great job they did. And Chrissy starts talking about, this is a perfect day. Truly, little things like this make me so happy. Then all of a sudden, John Legend comes out and she goes, thanks for being patient, John. And then, of course, John tries the crackers. And then the whole team that's taping tries the crackers. And they're all patting themselves on the back. Then the picture jumps to Meghan. It's the next day. And she's wrapping up the necklaces to send to Chrissy Teigen. So she says, well, I put them on chains. Of course, she's going to put these on 14 karat gold chains. Wish we could all afford those. And she goes, this is what you do to keep them from tangling, because of course we don't know anything about that. Only Meghan does. And she basically wraps them up and sends them off to Chrissy Teigen. This was the longest 33 minutes of my life. Ay. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications after you leave your comments. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.